Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Another big win for the freedom movement. Well, it's one big win for Peace Man, one giant win for freedom in general, because a victory for one person's freedom is a victory for all of our freedom. Peace Man should join us on the program very shortly, I think, to tell us what happened in court with him. I can tell you that the charges against him have been thrown out. So much for the system doesn't work. I mean, it's unfortunate that he had to go through this, but he won. At least that's my initial take on it. We'll get the details when he shows up. Also joining us on the program tonight, Chaplain Paul. He'll be along to talk about rights, people's rights, your rights, my rights, everyone's rights. And in particular, the rights of the elderly, the most vulnerable. He'll talk about fighting for those rights at a time when our rights are being trampled by globalists, by politicians, the elites, if you want to call them that. And I mean that in strictly in the sense of who has wealth and money, influence, power. People like Yuval Noah Harari, who says human beings have no rights. We'll get into that. Also, giant wave takes out people in a restaurant in the Marshall Islands at a U.S. military base. That's pretty weird. It looks like something out of a movie. It really does. When I watch it, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, is this even real? You'll have to see for yourself. Also, a military transport plane was apparently shot down. Russia's foreign minister at the United Nations today accused Ukraine of targeting the plane, shooting it down. So we'll show you what happened at the United Nations with that. Tucker Carlson didn't get arrested at the border. I don't know if you saw yesterday, in response to Tucker's phone call to the Prime Minister, I phoned the Prime Minister's office myself later. And Tucker said that he was coming to Canada to liberate Canadians, whatever that meant at the time. So I phoned up the Prime Minister. He called Justin Trudeau, left him a voice message. So I did the same thing. I had questions. So I phoned up the Prime Minister and I said, will you be arresting Tucker Carlson at the border? It's not clear to me. I don't know what he means. He's going to liberate Canadians. What are you going to do about it? Invoke the Emergencies Act on the day when a federal court ruled that the way he used the Emergencies Act was unconstitutional, back when he was trying to crush the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa. Anyway, Tucker made it. He was out in Alberta today. We'll give you a little taste of that as well. Even yesterday, when people were, some people were celebrating this court, I will call it a victory for freedom, this federal court decision on the use of the Emergencies Act. Some people were celebrating. A lot of people just no faith in the system, very pessimistic. A lot of negative comments coming to me through email and messaging. And I get it. But here we are today. We've got another win for freedom on our hands. And while everybody is, well, I wouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people are still of the belief that Justin Trudeau just can't be kicked out of office, what are we seeing today? One of his MPs calling for a leadership review within the party. I'm telling you, I keep saying Justin Trudeau's days are numbered. I think he'll stick around for the next election, but I think he'll be defeated, and there will be a lot of pressure on him to step aside. And I think he will, but he'll come back, just like his dad did. He'll try to anyway. Maybe not right away. It might be a little different. But I think that's the way it's going to go down because he has that name. And people have short memories. Also tonight, Hertz, the car rental company, is going to liquidate the bulk of its electric vehicle fleet. Too costly to fix. Not profitable. People don't want them. When they started renting them, I guess they thought it was a good idea, but not so much now. And then Donald Trump also tonight has a message that he's delivering to auto workers specifically about the dangers of Joe Biden's plans for the electrification of the auto industry. Or, as Trump says, Joe Biden's plans for the decimation of the auto industry because of his plans for electrification. Also, London, Ontario police launching an investigation into sexual assault allegations involving junior hockey players. World Cup, yeah. WIC. Junior hockey players. So that's breaking news tonight. That all goes back to a story from when was that? That was, it was tied to a 2018 group sexual assault. Allegations, charges of group sexual assault involving world junior hockey players. So 5 of these players being named. And we'll get into all of that. So lots to share with you tonight. Really excited to speak with Peaceman, Dana Melfi, about his court case. And then we'll get into this whole thing too about your rights. And that is a complex topic, but I think it dovetails nicely off of last night's conversation about free speech, which was not only interesting, it was incomplete. As I went to bed last night thinking about it, I thought, man, we discussed it in a lot of detail, but at the same time, I came away feeling like nothing had really been resolved and there were things left that I still wanted to say. So I don't know. But tonight's subject matter is sort of semi-related to that. So stay with me. We will be right back after this.
Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind.
Let's start with this because this is just mind-blowing. This video of this gigantic wave sweeping through a restaurant, blowing the doors off this place in the Marshall Islands. This is a U.S. military base. A giant wave just unexpectedly came crashing up onto shore and right into, like inside this building, causing flooding in the area. And inside, excuse me, I had to sneeze. Yeah, here we go. Let's take a look at this. This is, I just can't believe it. Here we go. Watch, look at this.
Oh my God. Jake, are you okay? Coming in.
It'll cue back to the beginning here. It's going
Get
to
out
loop
of
through.
here. Whoa. Whoa. Where's Viv? Where's Viv? Where? You good? You good? Oh my God. Jake, are you okay? Coming in. Get out of here.
Crazy stuff. Of course, I'm seeing immediately all kinds of people and media types weighing in on this, offering up their views on what is behind this. And immediately, some people are jumping to climate change. Of course, could be that they built the place too close to the water, too. But obviously, this isn't something that they expected to happen, or they wouldn't have built the place there. Mind-blowing. To me, that it almost looks fake. It looks like something staged for a movie. But many media outlets carrying that footage tonight. So I'm going to go with it must be real. Not to say that it isn't real video. It is, but it looks almost like something that a Hollywood special effects crew would have put together, but with, dumping a huge volume of water into the thing just for the effect. Bizarre. Anyway, enough of that. Let's move on. What else do we have for you? This jet, or this plane carrying Ukrainian prisoners of war crashes. Moscow is accusing Kiev of downing the plane. This happened in the Belgorod region. Everyone on board was killed. Ukraine, at this point, has neither confirmed nor denied that it hit the plane, but said Moscow had created a, in their words, deliberate threat to the life and safety of its POWs by failing to warn Kiev to deconflict the airspace before the swap. This was part of a prisoner exchange that was to take place. I have video to share with you of this crash, and it is quite evident that this aircraft was shot down. Here we go. So where the circled area is where you will see the plane. Keep your eye on that. I've slowed it down for you. And at first you don't see too much, but there it is. There you see the fireball from the explosion in the distance. This is, I believe, the best angle, the best video of the incident. And that's that. So today at the United Nations, there was a news conference held. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Ukraine had conducted a terrorist attack on that Russian transport aircraft, which was carrying 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war. We have him ready to go here. We're going to go to the UN and grab his comments. And here we go. Here's Sergei Lavrov at the UN.
Use of the terrorist methods by the Kiev regime. On the morning of the January 24th, Moscow time, a terrorist attack was conducted. As a result, in the Belgorod region, a Russian transport aircraft Il-76 was downed. It was supposed to transport from the Moscow region to Belgorod of 65 military servicemen of the armed forces of Ukraine. They were accompanied by 3 Russian officers and the crew of 6 people. All of them died. The Ukrainian prisoners of war were transported to the Belgorod region in order to conduct yet another swap that was agreed between Moscow and Kiev. Instead of this, the Ukrainian side launched an air defense missile from the Kharkov region. It targeted the airplane and was a fatal strike. We've asked for an emergency session of the Security Council at 3 p.m. New York time. And we really expect that the French chairmanship will do their will execute their mandate bona fide and will schedule this as soon as possible. We do not want to repeat the situation of April 2022, when after the staging of Bucha, where the bodies of people were shown and we still cannot get their names, after that staged action, the British chairmanship that was at the helm of the Security Council in April denied calling such a session for 72 hours. I hope that our French colleague will not follow the same path and will call an emergency session as we have asked today at 3 p.m.
So that's where that stands at the moment. So as you can see, what happened is they were supposed to have a prisoner swap. A Russian plane takes off carrying the Ukrainian prisoners of war. It enters airspace where it was then targeted by a Ukrainian launched missile. Russia says it was intentional, it was an act of terrorism. That isn't what the Ukrainian forces are saying. Obviously, as I said, they haven't really said a lot about it, but they are saying that it was up to Russia to tell them that that particular airspace had to be secured. And they're saying that it's not clear if that was effectively communicated at this point. So I don't know. It's a war of words back and forth again. And the result, casualties, dead people. And that's tragic all the way around. So there's that. Here's a picture of the wreckage to give you context, perspective on this. So heightened tensions there today. this will work its way out of the news cycle tragically. In short order, though, within the next 24 to 48 hours, this will be out of people's minds, memory hold, and we will have moved on to other things. I can guarantee that will be the case. Last night we were talking about free speech. And there are a few things that I wanted to mention. I don't know if I should get into this tonight or not. Maybe I'll save it. Well, I'll say this. One of the things that I didn't really come up last night that I did want to touch on was something called Brandolini's Law. And what that makes reference to is a lie or misinformation, basically a lie or a piece of propaganda. And Brandolini is a software developer, social media guru, smart guy. And it's his assertion that the problem with social media is that when you inject a lie or a piece of misinformation into the internet, it takes on a life of its own, and it takes at least 10 times more energy to refute a lie that is perpetuated online than it takes to tell the lie and have it spread effectively or be distributed effectively. So there was that whole part of the conversation that we really didn't get into last night. And then I started coming across some of this stuff online just today. We were talking about the use of the word Zionist, Zionism, and how it's being used in an interchangeable way with the word Jew, or in an expanded way to target people who even support Jews, and I think to some degree even capitalism. It's used interchangeably with that, with capitalist, so that in a way Zionism is an even broader, more all-encompassing phrase or word that goes beyond just the word Jew. In a way, it's even more distasteful to me because it means, depending on how you define it, but often it means Jews and anybody who supports the Jews and or Israel. People are hiding behind that word, as I said last night. And here's direct evidence, proof of that. It's demonstrable. And here it is. This is, I just inadvertently was subjected to this information earlier today, just a few hours ago on Twitter. And we were talking about Twitter becoming a kind of a cesspool and yet also a bastion of free speech. And here it is. This is a site called Defund Israel and Zionism. And it's all the standard anti-Jewish tropes. And you scroll down, but here's the thing. I've been warning everybody, man, be careful what you are listening to and what you subscribe to, because the language has been twisted, changed. They're playing word games with people in order to get people to follow them. When I say them, I mean, I would say bigots, even Nazis, neo-Nazis. I'm just being straight up with you. So I scroll down and you see a lot of the standard stuff that people are being told. Some of it's, this is all anti-Zionist stuff, okay? And then you get here and it says Hitler encouraging German citizens to help themselves, rich or poor. So they've started posting all these clips from Adolf Hitler right here on this site. You have a Hamas leader there. You have another one here. It says Hitler's speech with English subtitles. Everything he said still rings true today. And then a big portion of this speech runs, and this window with Adolf Hitler. So we've gotten to a point where on Twitter, you actually literally have people posting stuff basically saying that Adolf Hitler was right, attaching it to anti-Zionist rhetoric. Are you figuring it out yet, folks? Leave it with you. Incredibly distasteful. Stay with me. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Fighting the Great Reset by leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
I'm back. Tucker Carlson made it to Canada. Yes, he did. And I think the venue, for the first event, it appears it was sold out. And I don't know if you saw my call to Justin Trudeau, but I did phone. I asked him if he's going to arrest Justin Trudeau because, of course, as you may have seen, Tucker phoned the Prime Minister's office and said he was coming to Canada to liberate the country. And so I phoned up. I asked JT if he was going to arrest Tucker, but that has not happened, at least not yet. He made it through the border, made it to the event, got up on stage with Alberta's Premier, Danielle Smith, to partake in the event. Let me see here. I thought I had him queued up. Well, I did. Where'd you go, Tucker? Here we go. My apologies, folks. I had him queued. Hang on just a minute. Everything's falling apart here. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
So yeah, Tucker Carlson said, well, the whole event today ended with the Premier of Alberta saying she's going to double oil production or something, and to that effect. And then Tucker Carlson challenged the CBC to interview him and invited the CBC to meet him backstage, and he dared them to actually run the interview. Here's how it ended.
Said that your province, which is the energy-rich province of our country, was almost out of electricity just recently. So does this, if at the current trajectory, it'll be Bolivia in terms of its power grid. What does that get better soon, or does it continue to get? What's your projection?
Well, fortunately, we do have people who've soldiered on and are going to bring on new baseload natural gas power in the new year. So that will stabilize on that front. Yeah. We also, I would like to take a page out of what the Americans are doing, really, because on the one hand, federal leadership is talking along the same lines that.
Oh, I've noticed.
But look what's happening. America has become the largest producer of oil and gas for export in that same period of time, while all of the politicians have said they're going in the opposite direction. So I think we should just double down and decide we're going to double our oil and gas production because truly, where else does America want to get its oil from? Do you want to get it from Iran? Do you want to get it from Venezuela, or do you want to get it from, say, Canada? So I think that we can do a lot to make sure that the Americans know that we are here to provide energy security. We are a great friend, great ally, great neighbor, and we just need to get the political leadership to realize that we are a friend.
Then my 3-word piece of advice would be stop being embarrassed about who you are. You have nothing to be embarrassed about.
Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Wait, can I say one last thing? You said CBC is in the room this day meeting. I would love to do an interview with CBC. Meet me backstage. I dare you to put it on TV.
Yeah, that's the way that went down. There was, as I say, pretty much a packed house. In attendance today was Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada. We have a clip from Max. I'll share it with you. Here's Max's greeting to you from Alberta. Here he is, Maxime Bernier, leader of the PPC.
Hello, everybody. I'm in Alberta, in Calgary, and with like-minded people here to see Tucker, as you can see. But I believe all of the people here must have took the right deal. There are people that know what is happening in our country is not right, and we need to fight for our rights. And you can always count on us, on me, on the People's Party of Canada to do that. Stay strong and free.
And he spoke of rights, and we will be getting into a deeper discussion on rights in just a few minutes. But while we're on the subject of oil and gas, I want to draw your attention to a few things here tonight. First of all, I know that everyone is probably pretty familiar with the controversies, the scandals involving some auto manufacturers who have cheated on emissions tests for the vehicles that they manufacture in order to meet government regulations. When they've been caught, they've sometimes had to pay billions of dollars in fines. That's happened around the world, including in the United States. But in the US, it has now come to light that it is actually the government itself that is creating conditions to allow a form of cheating for auto companies who produce electric vehicles to make the electric cars look like they are more efficient than they are, and also to line the pockets of the big corporations that are producing these EVs. Here's one of the mainstream media articles reflecting this new reality of cheating. EV mileage is a scam, reads this headline from Newsmax, which isn't really entirely mainstream. It's sort of a conservative media outlet in the US. It says this is proof the government is cheating. And what they're making reference to is regulations for vehicle manufacturing with specific references to EVs. There are literally hundreds of thousands of pages of regulations that govern the manufacturing of automobiles. And deep down in, I think it's something like volume 67, page 36,000 and something or other, it's buried deep, deep down in these regulations. There is a provision that allows electric vehicle manufacturers to amplify the energy efficiency numbers just on paper for their EVs by multiplying the efficiency rating by a factor of 6.67. What does that really mean? This is for carbon credits that are issued to electric vehicle manufacturers. Those carbon credits can then either be used by the company itself so that they can produce product that is not carbon neutral, or they can sell those credits. If they have excess credits, they can sell them to other companies that maybe are short on credits, and without those credits, because of the way the system works, they would then be capped at a certain number of vehicles that they could manufacture. This has worked out extremely well for Tesla because they don't produce any gasoline-powered vehicles. They're strictly EV. In the last fiscal quarter alone, Q3, Tesla reported earnings just on carbon tax credits of over $530 million using this formula, this mathematical formula, to amplify the efficiency ratings of its vehicles. So this has shocked some people who are not aware of how the system works. This all coming at a time when there is an increasing level of dissatisfaction with EVs and consumer concern, which is resulting in a sales lag. As a result of that, Ford now has cut production. They've eliminated one of the shifts at its F-150 Lightning production facility. So they're dialing back production on electric vehicles. And General Motors has also pulled back on the expansion of manufacturing capacity for EVs as well. Just a year ago, Biden was bragging about the record level of investment that corporations were making into the electrification of the auto industry, and also bragging about the billions of dollars in government funding, subsidies, tax breaks, incentives that they were pumping into this effort to electrify the auto industry. But it hasn't been working out. And in the last few months, sales have tanked. Ford is now pulling back on EV production. General Motors also scaling things back. It's becoming painfully obvious that China is way out in front in controlling the production of electric vehicles, electric vehicle batteries, and in securing the various materials, minerals, chemicals, everything needed to produce the electric vehicle batteries. In fact, my research over the last 2 days has indicated that China actually controls over 90% of all of the materials needed to produce electric vehicle batteries. As a result of all this, Donald Trump today came out and issued this warning for auto workers. He says that while Biden is working through his Inflation Reduction Act and other legislation, as well as his macroeconomic policies, to electrify the auto industry, Trump says what he's really doing is decimating the auto industry, and it's going to cost thousands and thousands of jobs.
Biden has imposed the outlandish requirement that 67% of all new vehicles must be electric in less than 10 years. That means Michigan and places that make cars, you can forget about it. You better get your union working because you can forget about it. Those cars are all going to be made in China. According to the UAW president himself, one auto company CEO used the word brutality over 40 times in a single conversation to describe Joe Biden. I call him Crooked Joe because he's the most corrupt president in history. He's also the most incompetent. But Joe Biden's cruel and foolish electric vehicle, your union heads know it, but the union bosses don't want to do anything about it because they're not leaders. But you know who's voting for me? The people in the union. Yeah, the union heads and the Crooked Joe keep using the phrase fair transition. There's no fair transition. First of all, people don't want the electric car. And the ones that want it should get it. But we want to have all forms of transportation and all forms of motorization to describe this unnecessary forced transition to electric vehicles. But there's no such thing as fair transition that destroys over 100,000 auto manufacturing jobs. It'll be much more than that. Wastes tens of billions of dollars that should be going to the workers and makes new cars entirely unaffordable for the middle class. That's a transition to hell. You're going to hell, and your bosses are leading you right down the tubes. You shouldn't pay your fees. They get these big fees from all of their workers, and it doesn't matter how bad they are, they'll endorse a Democrat, even though the Democrat's selling you down the tubes. Both the UAW bosses and the big three auto executives should be screaming at the top of their lungs. They should be ashamed of themselves, demanding that Joe Biden cancel his brutal electric vehicle mandate before it destroys the entire U.S. auto sector. If the union bosses and the CEOs refuse to fight back against crooked Joe Biden by forcing him to repeal this disastrous electric car scheme, then you will know they're not pro-worker. They're not on your side. They've got some deals going for themselves. And I'm telling you, you shouldn't pay those dues. You should not pay your dues because they're selling you to hell. You're going to be going to hell. You're not going to have any jobs. All those cars are going to be made in China. Every one of them. You can forget it, Michigan. You can forget it, South Carolina. You can forget it, everybody. All of those cars are going to be made in China. We sit on liquid gold and we're getting rid of combustion engines. And they sit on all of the other materials that you need for the batteries. They're going to make all those cars. We're not going to make any of them. So to every auto worker, I stand in total solidarity with you in your fight against Joe Biden's job-killing Green New Deal insanity. It's insanity. When I am your president, I will deliver higher wages for auto workers. I will protect your jobs. I will end Joe Biden's catastrophic electric vehicle mandate. And by the way, if you want an electric car, you're going to get it. But you're going to be able to get all other types of cars, types of vehicles that you want.
Choice. Let the market decide. Let the people decide. That's what I'm all about. That makes sense to me. But if you are on a certain side of the political spectrum, I guess you subscribe to the idea of a centrally planned economy, government controlled. Don't rely on the markets. That's what a lot of people believe. But the people do speak with their wallets. Hertz is finding out the hard way that people don't really want these electric vehicles. They made a big commitment to the electrification of their fleet, their rental car fleet. And it has cost them. They are now in the process of backing down on that. And they are liquidating, I think it's 20,000 Teslas, mostly Teslas, electric vehicles, because people don't really want to rent them. They're not that popular, and they've had a lot of trouble with them. Here's a headline to confirm what I'm talking about. Hertz's Tesla liquidation sale likely means more depreciation for used EVs. See the subheading? Some of this isn't the car's fault, for example. Renters are crashing them. Yeah, because they do crazy things. I mean, the cars do. People get in them and they lurch forward, and they've had a lot of different issues like that. So, yeah, they've had quite a number of accidents. In addition to that, the repair costs are substantially higher for these EVs, and Hertz wasn't counting on that. The CEO of the Hertz rental car company has had some pretty critical words for Tesla and Elon Musk, saying that this is partly Tesla's fault because they do not provide bulk discount pricing when you purchase the parts to repair these vehicles in bulk. So that's part of the issue. The other issue is, as we've reported here within the last week, even just a minor amount of damage to a battery forces the owners, in this case Hertz, to replace the entire battery pack. And we've seen with some models of electric cars, bills coming back to the owners in excess of $50,000 or $60,000 in order to put them back on the road. They also are not charging properly in the winter, and they don't hold their charge for nearly as long. The cold weather, especially in places like Alberta, Colorado, Chicago, where it gets very cold, the range is cut severely, and is cut even more when people are using the heaters, which run entirely off the batteries as well, using electricity, precious energy, which could be turned into more miles, but instead is being turned into heat units. So with these cars going on the market, the headline is quite right. There is concern that putting all of these vehicles onto the market will create more supply, therefore push the values of used vehicles down because they're going to come online for sale all around the same time. And we're already seeing that electric vehicles are depreciating much faster than vehicles powered by internal combustion engines. And it looks like some of these Teslas and other EVs from Hertz may be going for bargain prices for less than half of what the company paid for them new. Less than half. Plus, government subsidies may still come into play to assist consumers who want to buy these electric vehicles used as Tesla goes through with their EV liquidation. Now, we'll move along here and get into our next story on the other side of this, which is a discussion on defending your rights, because there are some globalists out there who say we simply don't have any human rights. We'll get into it on the other side of this.
Fighting the Great Reset by leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
So let's tee up our conversation on rights with Yuval Noah Harari, a futurist who is embraced by the World Economic Forum, globalists. He's asked to speak at a lot of events put on by the world's elites, if you want to call them that. Those who advocate for a one world communo-fascistic government. This is a guy who says that humans are hackable animals. This is a guy who rejects religion. This is a guy who I would say, maybe not in words, but certainly in action, represents global communism, global fascism, global communo-fascism. He's a globalist. And he rejects God because, like all those who subscribe to that ideology, God is a threat to their authority. They want to be the ones in charge, and they want to be the ones who dictate entirely what is right, what is wrong, what is moral, what isn't, what you are allowed to do, what you can't. They make all the rules. You get God out of the way and replace it with the state, in this case, a one world government, a single global state, nation state. And he becomes, with his ruling friends, his ruling elites, they become all powerful. Here's Yuval Noah Harari talking about how human beings are really just animals. How the only reason we dominate in this jungle over animals like chimpanzees is because we have the ability somehow to organize more efficiently, more effectively. And he says that if you just cut open a human being and look at all the blood and the guts inside, there are no rights in there. He literally said that in this TEDx presentation. He's making headlines even now, tonight, on some media outlets. Not everything that he's saying is new. This particular clip I'm going to run right now is not brand new, but it does reveal his views on rights, your rights, human rights, rights in general. He says they're a myth. I want you to think about that too, because a lot of what he's about to say here reflects, echoes, mirrors even, a lot of the rhetoric that I even hear coming from people within the freedom movement who say that, oh, nothing, everything's a corporation, nothing is real, it's all a myth, nothing exists. You listen to what he says. He's actually saying the exact same things and then takes it sort of a step further. To me, it's alarming because I think a lot of people who say a lot of things just regurgitate what they're told without really thinking things through and thinking about what they really mean. And quite often, I'm seeing people being led down roads that they say they're fighting against, only to be led straight to the very thing that they abhor, the thing that they think that they're fighting against. They're being led to it and end up supporting it, asking for the very thing that enslaves them. Here's Yuval Noah Harari.
Find it acceptable that yes, in the religious field, humans cooperate by believing in the same fictions. Millions of people come together to build a cathedral or a mosque or fight on a crusade or in a jihad because they all believe in the same stories about God and heaven and hell. But what I want to emphasize is that exactly the same mechanism underlies all other forms of mass-scale human cooperation, not only in the religious field. Take, for example, the legal field. Most legal systems today in the world are based on a belief in human rights. But what are human rights? Human rights, just like God and heaven, are just a story that we've invented. They are not an objective reality. They are not some biological fact about Homo sapiens. Take a human being, cut him open, look inside, You will find the heart, the kidneys, neurons, hormones, DNA, but you won't find any rights. The only place you find rights is in the stories that we have invented and spread around over the last few centuries. They may be very positive stories, very good stories, but they are still just fictional stories that we've invented. The same is true of the political field. The most important factors in modern politics are states and nations. But what are states and nations? They are not an objective reality. A mountain is an objective reality. You can see it, you can touch it, you can even smell it. But a nation or a state like Israel or Iran or France or Germany, this is just a story that we've invented and became extremely attached to. The same is true of the economic field. The most important actors today in the global economy are companies and corporations. Many of you perhaps work for a corporation like Google or Toyota or McDonald's. What exactly are these things? They are what lawyers call legal fictions. They are stories invented and maintained by the powerful wizards we call lawyers. And what do corporations do all day? Mostly, they try to make money. Yet what is money? Again, money is not an objective reality. It has no objective value. Take this green piece of paper, the dollar bill, look at it. It has no value. You cannot eat it, you cannot drink it, you cannot wear it. But then come along these master storytellers, the big bankers, the finance ministers, the prime ministers, and they tell us a very convincing story. Look, you see this green piece of paper? It is actually worth 10 bananas. And if I believe it, and you believe it, and everybody believes it, it actually works. I can take this worthless piece of paper, go to the supermarket, give it to a complete stranger whom I've never met before, and get in exchange real bananas, which I can actually eat. This is something amazing. You can never do it with chimpanzees. Chimpanzees trade, of course. Yes, you give me a coconut, I'll give you a banana. That can work. But you give me a worthless piece of paper, and you expect me to give you a banana? No way. What do you think I am, a human? Money, in fact, is the most successful story ever invented and told by humans, because it is the only story everybody believes. Not everybody believes in God. Not everybody believes in human rights. Not everybody believes in nationalism, but everybody believes in money and in the dollar bill. Take even Osama bin Laden. He hated American politics and American religion and American culture, but he had no objection to American dollars. He was quite fond of them, actually. To conclude then, we humans control the world because we live in a dual reality. All other animals live in an objective reality. Their reality consists of objective entities like rivers and trees and lions and elephants. We humans, we also live in an objective reality. In our world too, there are rivers and trees and lions and elephants. But over the centuries, we have constructed on top of this objective reality a second layer of fictional reality, a reality made of fictional entities, like nations, like gods, like money, like corporations. And what is amazing, that as history unfolded, this fictional reality became more and more powerful, so that today, the most powerful forces in the world are these fictional entities. Today, the very survival of rivers and trees and lions and elephants depends on the decisions and wishes of fictional entities like the United States, like Google, like the World Bank, entities that exist only in our own imagination. Thank you.
Okay. Joining us now
Hello,
is
Rick.
Captain Paul. Hello, sir.
Thank you for having me on. Boy, coming after that guy, boy, do I have a bunch to say.
Yeah. I'm glad you're here. And yeah, I'm eager to get your reaction to what we just heard from this world globalist, this leader of the globalist movement.
Well, first of all, this is not a fantasy. This is reality. I was in Kingman State Prison for 20 months. And while I was there, I witnessed miracle after miracle after miracle. Inmates healed of diabetes, hep C, cancer, relationships restored. That is not a fantasy. That's reality. I'd like to say to that man, what's love then? What's peace? Right? What's love? You can't see it, you can't touch it, but it is a reality. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. That man walks by sight and not by faith. I walk by faith and not by sight. All right. We walk by faith and not by sight. Faith come by hearing, hearing come by the word of God. So he is what I would call an intellectual know-it-all. All right. He's looking at the world through what he could see, touch, and the things around him. Yes, there's a mountain, but the word of God says the faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains. So he is a lost soul. I pray, Lord, that you would touch that man in a supernatural way, open his eyes to see, to remove all doubt of your glorious existence. Reveal yourself to that man in a way, supernatural way, that's going to wake him up, because that guy's lost. And to think that people listen to him is tragic. It's absolutely tragic. You know, he talks about human rights. We have human rights based on morality. Where does morality come from then? Morality comes from God. It's inherited. It's in our DNA. So morality comes from God. So we base human rights based on morality, right?
Yes. You know, the thing that people really lose sight of when they say exactly what he's saying, oh, Canada, the United States, these governments, they're just corporations. They're not even real. They're just things that we made up. They're losing sight of something very important. It is not even just that you have to follow things out of faith or spirituality. What people are losing sight of is that government, even companies and corporations, are us as a community. A corporation is an illegal entity, but it is made up of a group of people, the corp, the body, the body, a cooperation, a cooperative of people. You own shares in a company. The shareholders of that company make up the company. It's the people who own it and control it. That is what makes it real. And it is the collective will of the people who own that then formulate policies and a community even. That is a very real thing. That's very tangible. That's not a fiction. That's a very real thing. So too with a government in a liberal democracy or a democracy in general, the government is the people. Now, you may think that it isn't, but it sure as heck is, that we do hand over or outsource the operations of our government through elections to elected officials, politicians, and then by extension, bureaucrats who operate through a legal entity set up by our governments as a nation state. State corporations or crown corporations, as they're called in Canada, but those are just legal entities that are an extension of government, which is us, the people. And the only thing that gives these politicians the authority to govern over us in a democracy is us. And we get to decide when there are elections who stays, who goes. And obviously, there is corruption and there are efforts constantly by these politicians and bureaucrats to hold on to their jobs, sometimes by corrupt and sometimes even illegal means. There are all these issues that play out all the time. But the reality is, government is a very real thing because it is the people. The reason a police officer can pull you over and give you a speeding ticket is because he has the authority vested in him by the community. There's a whole lot of people standing behind that officer, people from the community who say, yes, you represent us to keep the peace on the streets, to enforce these laws that are codified through a criminal code, through a legal system that everyone agrees on so that we don't have chaos, anarchy. It's the community that then gives the authority to that officer to act in that way. That is not a fiction. That's not just a story. That's the whole community agreeing on something by coming together through a democratic process, through the creation of laws that are then written down and codified so that everyone knows what those rules are. So you know what the speed limit is. Everyone can agree on that, which is why, because they're written down, there is no ignorance of the law that gives you an excuse before a judge that gets you off the hook by saying, well, I didn't know, therefore I'm innocent. No, everyone has an obligation as a member of the community to adhere to those laws. That is the rule of law. I believe in the rule of law. And the thing that concerns me is that when I listen to guys like Yuval Noah Harari, he's getting it all wrong. But that is why these collectivists, these globalists, these communo-fascists are so damn dangerous. Through that kind of rhetoric, they work to tear down our societies. They erode confidence in our institutions. Now, I can certainly get behind criticism of and even efforts to remove a lot of politicians from office through legal, lawful, peaceful means, democratically. But these guys, they want to go further than that. What he said erodes the foundations of our communities, of our societies. He's saying that none of that is real. And the reason he's saying that is because he wants to tear it all down so that he can replace it with a globalist government that gives him and his friends all the power and takes everything away from you. He's saying you have no rights because he wants to govern over you. He wants to dictate to you. These people are extremely dangerous. And Chaplain Paul, I'm so glad that you joined us here tonight. And we had a conversation this week about you coming back on the program because I know that you're out there fighting for people's rights, and in particular, some of the most vulnerable, the elderly, those who are sick, and you've been pretty active in that way. And I'm just going to throw the floor back out, give you the floor again here to just explain why you wanted to come on tonight and what you've been up to, and just bring us up to date because you are a regular contributor here on the program, and I'm very excited to hear what you have to say now.
First of all, I can't pronounce. I don't know the guy's name. The guy that was speaking. Could you tell me the guy's name again?
Yuval Noah Harari.
First of all, he's basically like an antichrist. That's the antichrist methodology to cheapen life to such a degree, to put everybody into slavery, to have total control over everybody, to make people think you have no rights, you have no value, do what they say, and you're going to like it. You're not going to own any property, you're not going to own nothing, but you're going to be safe. We're going to keep you safe, and you're going to like it. And that's their methodology, to just cheapen life to such a degree. We are nothing. We are considered nothingness. But the deal is that yes, I fight for the rights for not just people in long-term care, but all our rights. And the sad fact is, you talked about the corporation being a collective body, and in a healthy corporation, everybody has input to make sure that it doesn't get corrupt and that it's producing products that don't kill us and don't have poisons, and it doesn't become a monopoly where they just take over a whole town or a whole city or a whole country. So here's what the problem is. If you get people, the head of those corporations, that are corrupt and that are evil, then what they're going to do is they're going to limit the rights of the people that are working for that corporation to such a degree. You're basically a slave. Okay, you come to work, you punch in, you're given money. Here, Rick, you're going to come to work 9 to 5, 5 days a week. We're going to pay you money, and then you get a check. But then you use that money to come back to the corporation to get your food and your rent and everything else. At the end of the day, you got nothing left. So that is the in definition of slavery. That's slave. You go to work, you get paid, but then you're using that money that you were paid to go right back to the corporations to give them the things that you need. And you just never get ahead in life, and you're just spinning your wheels until you go into the grave. Okay, that's a form of.
Yeah, I agree with that to some degree. It's the problem with the current corporatocracy that we have right now is that we have a fascistic form of government, or a fascistic economic system that has evolved out of what was supposed to be a free market system, but only employs some elements of the free market because it is more fascistic. And when I say that, what we've ended up with is public-private partnerships where government is working in hand with corporations. And they're doing that in such a way that it creates barriers to entry for smaller independent businesses to come in and compete. It creates unlevel playing fields, as we saw during the pandemic, where big box stores are open, but Susie's shoe store, independently owned 2 blocks away, had to shut down. So that's true on that level. All I'm saying, in response to what Yuval Noah Harari is saying with regard to corporations, is he's saying they're not really real things. And I'm saying that they are real things. You might not be able to, touch a corporation, but you can touch all the assets of it. You can see all the people who make up that corporation. We are those corporations, even in a fascistic system, because we own the stocks. That's our retirement funds. That's our RSPs, or our, there are all these different financial investments that we have. We make up those corporations. The people do, who have shares in those companies. And government also. I'm so tired of people saying a government, it's just a corporation. No, it is not just a corporation. It is us. It's more than that. It is a nation state, which is made up of the people within that. It's the people that make the nation state. And it's the people that give the authority to government. Now, those politicians and bureaucrats would like us to think it's the other way around. But in a liberal democracy, the forefathers or the founding fathers had the presence of mind and the wisdom to enshrine in our constitutions our God-given rights, making reference to God in our constitutions in the United States and Canada, saying that our rights really come from God, not from the politicians, that they are naturally given to us upon birth by God, and that our rights extend from that. The limitations on those rights, again, come from not the government. That shouldn't be coming from government. It's us as a community. We say where the restrictions on those rights come from, or where those limits must be imposed, so that you don't have people infringing on other people's rights. You can't have a peaceful community or society without imposing some limits on rights in order to protect the rights of other people. Right? You can't just go out and kill someone. You need a law against that. I'm not free to just go out and murder someone. That there has to be a law against that, because you're infringing on someone else's rights. It's a fairly complex thing, but that's why we've had philosophy and religion, which I think is in itself a form of philosophy. And through all of that, through the Bible, we find morality. That's what those stories are about. The stories are not a fiction. The stories are there to teach us about the past and where we're going in the future. They are a tool through which we learn and find that moral compass, which today is lacking because of people like Yuval Noah Harari and Klaus Schwab and the other globalists out there, and collectivists and communo-fascists like Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden, who reject God, who reject religion, and tear down our past and say that that's all just a myth. Just reject all of that. Reject the nation state. When they tell you to reject the nation state, if they tell you that your government is just a corporation that's just a fiction, what they're saying is you are a fiction. You and your rights, those rights that you think you have, that's a fiction. And I keep hearing that talk from people who sit there and pretend like they're out to defend people's rights. And when they say those words, they're actually telling you exactly the opposite. It is a giant trap.
Okay, let's in healthcare, in long-term care in America, what's happened is long-term care in America is basically corporate control, government controlled. Okay, it is corporate, the corporations. It's government controlled, basically government controlled slavery. That's what it is. You have the corporations that own our elected officials, and then our elected officials are their attack dog or their lap dogs that control things like long-term care. So what is the deal? Well, the thing is, if people don't know their rights, if they don't know their civil rights, their constitutional rights, their patients' rights, their human rights, and they don't know how to exercise them, they don't know how to teach them to others, they just don't know what to do, then they're going to be trampled on, they're going to be weakened, and people are going to get taken advantage of. This is, give you an example, like if it's okay with you, of what happened during COVID. Okay, so this is an example of how to defend your civil rights. When COVID hit, they put millions of long-term care patients in isolation. They set them in isolation without any visits for over a year. All right. I fought every day to reopen those doors for visits. That was a constitutional violation, a civil violation, a patient's violation, and a human rights violation. Why? Because right now there's over 440,000 in the United States. There's over 440,000 people die a year because of a preventable medical mistake in hospitals alone. 440,000. The Civil War was from 1881 to 1885, 400,000 men died in a 4-year period. In the United States, you have more people dying a year because of a preventable medical mistake than all the people that died in the Civil War in 4 years. That is a major reason to be in there by our loved one's side, to make sure their medical wishes are being honored, making sure that they are protected, making sure they're receiving the love and the compassion, the encouragement and kindness, making sure that they're preventing any mistakes, making sure that they're being treated properly, making sure that they're calm and at peace and their needs are being met. That was all thrown out the window. And what did everybody do? Nothing. Everybody went along with it because we were told it's for the best, for to protect those people. We need to put them in isolation so they don't get COVID. Well, what they did was they died of loneliness. When you're put in isolation without any love, without anybody by your side, it wreaks havoc on your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, and your spiritual health. It slows your ability to heal. Our elected officials that did not defend our rights broke their oath of office and need to resign. Okay. Nobody's calling for this except me. They broke their oath of office. They took an oath. I called. I wanted to find out. You took an oath. What does that mean when you break it? It doesn't mean nothing unless we, the people, say you broke your oath. Time to go. We're removing you from office for breaking that oath. They took an oath to defend our constitutional rights, our civil rights. They broke that oath during COVID. Everybody went along with it because we thought, okay, we were told that COVID, if you get COVID, you're going to die. If you get COVID, you're going to die. It has over a 98% survival rate, number one. Number two, getting people by our side.
I need to caution you here that we are on YouTube, so we need to not go down that road too far.
All right. We'll back up a little bit. So the deal is that they not allowing at least one healthy screen family member in to be by our loved one's side violated their rights. It could have been done by appointment. You could have went in 3 or 4 days a week for a couple of hours. Let's face it, but they cut everybody off, giving the healthcare system a free ride. And, if you look up the statistics for abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, patients dying of neglect, abuse, and mistreatment, those statistics are pretty high. All the more reason to be in there. So again, how do you exercise your civil rights? Here's an example. Okay. So I got in contact with the chairwoman of the Health and Human Services Committee out here in Arizona, and she had no idea we were locked out. All non-staff member clergy and all family were locked out. And so she had no idea what we did and what the importance of it. And I said, you need to reclassify us as being essential caregivers. At least one Healthy Screen family member and clergy to get in there to be by these people's side. And so she ran with it. She talked to the governor and did what she had to do, and they reopened the state. Now, I needed that piece of paper. I needed those regulations in my hand. So I could get back into the facility where I go to see Pastor Sean and other patients. So I called the executive staff of the facility where I serve, and they were hemming and hawing and said, no, we're not allowing any visits. So I called the regional compliance director for the parent company for the Western United States, and she was hemming and hawing. And I said, look, Monday morning, me and Pastor Ken are going to go down and visit Pastor Sean. If you don't let us in, we're immediately going to go and file a complaint with the long-term care licensing department, at which point a surveyor is going to come out on site show that you're out of compliance and your facility is going to be heavily fined. And within an hour, we worked out a visitation plan. That's how you defend your civil rights. You need to know the law. You need to have it in your hand, and you have to have the conviction and the courage and the will to stand up to those who want to trample our rights. And that was it. And then the COVID unit. The COVID unit was still not allowing visits 3 months after the Health and Human Services of the United States, Division of the United States, said all COVID patients are allowed visits. The facility where I went, they did not do that for 3 months. Again, I put my foot down, and they dismantled the whole thing and allowed visits. If I didn't do what I did, then you don't know how long they would have milked it and not allow patients to have visits. Again, we have to take a stand. We have to know our rights and be willing to defend them, exercise them, teach them to others. Our rights and freedoms are only as good as what we're willing to fight for and stand up for. They could be written on paper, but if you're not willing to step up and put your foot down in a legal, like Martin Luther King, okay, nonviolent. We're talking nonviolence, civil disobedience, but know the law and have a willingness to step up for the rights of others. We're to place service above self and reaching out and helping others for the glory of God. Like I said, during COVID, the Christians ran to the plague during the Black Plague, okay? The Christians ran to the plague, and they gave aid and comfort, medical aid and comfort and love to those that were dying of the Black Plague. Everybody else ran away. When asked, what are you doing? You could get sick, you could die. They said, it's the least we could do. Our Lord died on a cross for us. That's what we're supposed to do. Not run and hide under the bed, but yet go out and seek those that are suffering and offer our love and protection and encouragement and kindness. This is what we're supposed to do. And how do we do that when they shut the door in our face? Know the law. Have a willingness to contact your elected officials. Tell them the reason why it's so important that we have that stimulant and love and protection, especially in healthcare. And that's how you do it. Otherwise, they're going to get away with murder. It's just the way it is. We have to relearn the tactics of Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy, John Kennedy, Gandhi, Cesar Chavez. All of these people did things in a nonviolent way. And they left us a blueprint, even with Jesus Christ and his teachings. We have a blueprint of how we can defend our rights, strengthen our rights, and be able to have a community that's a lot better than what we have now. We have that blueprint. All we have to do is read it, do it, and get out there and just be willing to do that,
Yeah. So, Chaplain Paul, maybe what we can do is take a quick break. Maybe you can turn a light on in the room you're
Okay.
in there. while you do that, we'll take a quick break, and then when we come back on the other side, we'll be able to see your bright smiling face.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Okay, we're back and we can see you now. That's much better. Thanks for doing that. And I did send the wrong link to Peaceman. I received an email, so hopefully he gets the new link to the studio, and at some point during the broadcast, he should join us to talk about the charges being withdrawn against him today. But, Yuval Noah Harari is not only a futurist, he's an advocate for transhumanism. He says humans are just hackable animals. No wonder he thinks we don't have rights. If we're just animals, I guess rights are suspended. What are your thoughts on transhumanism and his comments with regard to us just being hackable animals, which means, I guess, that we will eventually be jacked in, connected in a biodigital way to the internet or the Internet of Things or the Matrix?
The way things are going to progress, okay, in the faith that I believe in, and one thing is that if I was to talk to that man, I would say, what I believe in is not based on what I've read or heard or anybody's told me. It's based on what I've seen, actual stuff. I have actual things here that, have fallen into my lap by God. So I have actual things that are in my, here's a whole, the book I wrote, it's not just somebody telling me or reading the word of God. It's actual real experience of what happened in my life, real stuff. So again, that man, he walks by sight and not by faith. He is a pawn of Satan. Satan wants to make people slaves where we have no value. This is the man's objective, to say that if you cut us open, we bleed like an animal. We're animals. Well, the fact of the matter is, it's just appalling to think that that people even that people would pay money to go sit and listen to this man is very disturbing. But again, where's the hope? Okay, the hope is in Christ. The hope is in Christ, and if we focus on Him, then we will live a life that with a certain measure of peace and love. Okay, why? Because if we're following His teachings and we're focused on Christ, the apostles were in the boat and Christ was sleeping in the boat. Okay, and there was a storm and the boat was on the Sea of Galilee and they were freaking out. They thought the boat was going to sink. Well, He was sleeping in the boat. He gets up, He calms the storm. Like I told you the other day, we're all in the same boat. Okay, Christ is in the boat with us. We're looking around at all the stuff going on in the world. When we magnify the problem, we minimize God. When we magnify God, we minimize the problem. It means you could be in the middle of a hurricane, okay? But if you got your focus on God, he'll going to give you a measure of peace. Okay. And that's what all of this stuff going on in the world. We have to focus on God. We have to focus on Christ, because we have a choice. Either get so worked up about it that we literally, it'll affect our physical health. We'll begin to break down because of the worry, the fear, the doubt, the depression, the anxiety, the stress will take a toll on our body. So through prayer and through focusing on Christ and his love, and through service and doing that, we're given a measure of peace and calmness in the midst of the storm. All right. All of this stuff that's going on is part of the plan. This is the end times. And so this is a foreshadow of when the Antichrist comes to power. So you have his pawns now that are preparing the way. Okay. Getting people to believe like that guy, getting people to follow that man's ideology. And what do they do? And then they start to do it. They start to then tell others, and it spreads like a cancer until you get a world where everything is just the same, like robots, and all we are is expendable. Get up, go to work. Here's your share, okay, of stuff, and here's your living quarters, and you go to work, and here's your share of stuff, and you're just going to go and go and go until you drop dead, like we're on a conveyor belt, like we're a bunch of robots, and that's what they want. Because if they have total control, they could have all the money and the resources of the world, and they box us into these 15-minute cities where you're like cattle, okay? And so how do you deal with that? Well, you're just going to have to trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct our path. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct our path. As we go about our day and as we move about in this world, if you put your life on autopilot and say, Lord, I'm yours today, help me to see others and the world around me through the eyes of Christ, and help me to love others as you love me. Lord, please help me to do that so that I could, be a light of hope in my area of influence, in my circle of influence. And please send people around me that may need prayer or a kind word or encouragement, and you be the light. We could either be the light. I was sitting in the dark, right? I was sitting here in the dark. Okay. Turn on the light. It's the same thing. It's like there's somebody sitting in the dark. You go and give them the hope of Christ, and all of a sudden the light comes on. You have two people in the world. They're either going to turn out the light or they're going to put on the light. Our job is to help to turn on people's light for the glory of God, and not turn it off for the glory of Satan. So there's two people in the world that want to turn out the light, and there's others that want to turn on the light. Let's pray to God that the ones that are turning on the lights can multiply to such a degree we can light up the whole world with Christ's peace, love, and joy and hope. That's what we have. The only hope we have is through Christ. I mean, that is it. We can't put our hope in politicians. We can't put our hope in celebrities. We can't even put our hope. Our hope is in Christ, and that's what it's all about. And again, there are those that be still and know that I am God, and those that go out and are the warriors. The ones that are be still and know that I am God are not to argue with the warriors. The warriors have their thing, and the ones that are praying and doing their thing, they have their part. So we each do our intricate part. We each do what God directs us to do so that we can reach out and help others. He's got me, what he's put on my heart are people in long-term care. I'll walk on fire for these people. Okay, I have a heart for them. I love them dearly. Many of them died because of neglect, abuse, and mistreatment that I love dearly. Okay, and there's patients in there right now that I love dearly that are not being treated properly. I cannot go look these people in the face and then go out and act like it's okay, everything's hunky-dory. I have no choice but to fight for them because nobody else is. I went and testified down at the state capitol, okay, in front of the ad hoc committee for abuse, neglect, and mistreatment of vulnerable adults in Arizona long-term care facilities. I testified a few times in front of that committee, and I'm the only one out of 7 million people. All right, I'm the only one out of 7 million people to show up and and share my testimony and fight for these people. The last time I went with Al, who lost his wife, Janelle, who I was very fond of, and Stacy, whose husband, Thomas, who I love dearly. He was only 59 years old, died. And they died in these facilities. And they had to deal with neglect, abuse, and mistreatment. And so this is who I'm fighting for. And then you have people out there, they're fighting for children's rights or the homeless or veterans. And that's great, you know, and we all do what we got to do in order to try to make this world a better place to live. And that's, you know, that's where I'm at. I'm not stopping. I'm going to fight this fight until I breathe my last breath, because I've seen too much horrific sorrow and misery by people that I love. I cannot just turn it off. I have to keep fighting so that hopefully when we hit those beds, we'll be treated better. Or when our children or grandchildren or family members, when they hit those beds, they'll be treated better. That's my gig. You know, I could talk all night, but I'm not going to do that, Rick.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it is getting, the clock is ticking here. So I'm just going to throw it over to you, Chaplain Paul, and I'm just going to get you to kind of give us some final thoughts and wrap up for us.
The Bible, you know, is not just a book of stories like that man said. Okay. It's a historical document. You can prove that it's a historical document based on archaeological discoveries and based on fact. Okay. How is it that Israel, watch this, every other country on earth has a history, right? Russia has a history. China has a history. Every other country on earth has a history, and nobody questions their history. But when it comes to Israel, everybody says it's a fable. Well, how could an entire country, an entire people get away with a fable for 5,000 years? Okay. It is an historical document that is living and breathing. The word of God is living. It is living, sharper than a two-edged sword, piercing even to division of soul and spirit and of joint and marrow, and is a discerner thoughts and intents of the heart. It's living, it's alive, it has spirit to it. When you read the word of God, there's scripture verses that will illuminate, that will match your circumstance. There is a living God that is orchestrating all circumstance on this earth. When I forgot what I forgot what his name is now. Darwin, okay?
Charles Darwin, yeah.
When he died on his deathbed, he said, the mere fact, the complexity of the eye proves that there's a God. If you do a study just on the eye and the complexity of the eye to see color and all the way that the complexity of the eye, he said that it proves that there's a God. If you look into physics and you look into all the things that are around us, you can see that there's order to it, there's design to it. And so there is a living power that is controlling things. Otherwise, everything would be chaos. The moon would be crashing into the earth. The sun would be gyrating out of control. The earth wouldn't be spinning in a perfect 24-hour day. Everything's in perpetual motion. How can you have perpetual motion in the universe without some type of order, without some type of design? So so once we recognize, yes, there's a living God, and now here's what he's given us. He's given us his word that has all the instructions we need to live a life that is pleasing unto him, and where we can at least, have a better chance to cope and live a life that is a better life than if you, in the absence of that, and you're running around and you're filled with fear and anger. Okay. I'm going to close with this. Okay. When COVID hit, here's what happened. Millions of people traded away their rights and freedoms out of fear and ignorance in exchange for safety and comfort. That's exactly what happened, without question. Okay. They traded their rights and freedoms away for safety and comfort out of fear and ignorance, without doing any research at all, and without saying, hold on, we can't allow this. We can't allow this over here. You can't take away our rights because there's a pandemic. You can't go in and lock people up like animals for over a year. You can't do this. We all went with it because it blindsided us. Okay, the last time there was a pandemic like this was in 1918, and so we really had nothing to go on, but now we do. We're not to allow this to ever happen again. So there it is. And I want you to know something, Rick.
Yeah.
Jesus loves you, and so do I.
Thank you, Chaplain Paul. I appreciate you, and I love you too, man. And it's been great to have you back on the program. Always inspirational, words of wisdom, and keep on fighting for those who can't advocate for themselves. It's people like you who I think are the true heroes, and you keep fighting for freedom. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll let Chaplain Paul go. I will reconvene on the other side of this.
Exile. The Knights of Malta. Maverick News. Join us. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back, and we'll move on to some of the other news of the day. And I know that a lot of you want to see Justin Trudeau gonzo. Well, so too do many of the people within his own party. Tonight, there is a Liberal member of Parliament who is calling for a leadership review. He's making headlines and originally doing an interview with CBC and now making headlines on other media outlets as well. Here's an example on Yahoo News. Liberal MP says he thinks Trudeau should face a leadership review. He stops short of calling for Trudeau to step down, but this is the guy, Ken McDonald. And he represents the riding of Benoit Roussel. And he was first elected in 2015, it says here. That's when Trudeau first came into power, so he's been riding on Trudeau's coattails. So I'm sorry, his riding is actually Avalon. And says here this isn't the first time he has whipped up controversy within the party. Last fall, he voted in favor of a Conservative motion to abolish carbon pricing, one of Trudeau's flagship policies, as we know, and we've been talking about that very thing as it relates to electric vehicles, carbon tax credits. That has really improved Tesla's financial bottom line in the US. Similar systems in place in other countries as well. Let's see if I have anything else on the news side for you tonight. I think we've just about got most of the stuff covered. Oh, there was this story. I did want to touch on this. That junior hockey story. Big story in Canada. First bubbled to the surface, about a year ago, I guess? So now police in London, Ontario, posting on social media, on Twitter, their media services division, saying that there will be a news conference, but not until next month. I think it's February 5th. There it is there. It says, we understand that there is significant public interest in relation to a sexual assault investigation dating back to 2018. We anticipate that the London Police Service will hold a press conference on Monday, February 5th, 2024, to share further details. And I'll bring up this other page. And this, of course, revolves around an incident, a sexual assault allegation involving a young woman who says she she was sexually assaulted by multiple junior hockey players. 5 of these players are now expected to surrender to police, just turn themselves in, go down to the police station where charges, I guess, will be laid. And we will find out more down the road. This resulted in an avalanche of reports, a lot of controversy, sponsors pulling out of junior hockey and Hockey Canada, the federal government also reviewing its support of the Hockey Canada system and organization, as was illustrated through a lot of this reporting. Junior hockey is big business in Canada because these players are on a path to playing pro hockey, and a lot rides on their futures and their careers in junior hockey. Here's Conservative Member of Parliament Michelle Ferrari back in June of 2022 addressing the issue of government funding for Hockey Canada in the wake of these allegations when they first came to light. And this, of course, no statute of limitations here. And these allegations now being acted upon. And there was sort of an investigation that took place before, with some people saying that it wasn't really a full investigation, that the police didn't really get too deep into it. And now it looks like it's going to be something far more serious. Here's Michelle Ferrari.
The amount of money that you're getting from the federal government, that Hockey Canada is getting from the federal government, $14 million in federal funds. And I know you've said on the record that none of this federal money was used to pay the victim. Where did the money come from?
We liquidated a portion of our investments, and we used that to settle this lawsuit.
Can you be a little more specific? Because what we have here is it says here that there's $9.64 million in insurance premiums in your fiscal 2021 for everything from accidental, medical, and dental coverage to third-party sexual misconduct liability. So you actually have insurance for third-party sexual misconduct liability. Of that $9.64 million, how much of that is always going to third-party sexual misconduct liability?
I apologize. I don't have that available to me here
Can you
today.
get that for us, please? This Liberal government has known for 4 years about the heinous allegations of sexual assault against 8 players from Team Canada. Hockey Canada received $14 million from 2020 to 2021 from this Liberal government. Hockey Canada has paid millions to pay off sexual assault claimants. My question is for the Prime Minister, who claims to be a feminist. How is covering up sexual assault helping women?
Mr. President, after hearing today's story about how the Conservative are mobilizing organization that promotes violence against women, it's a little bit shameful, the questions that they're asking today.
So yeah, there was some sort of a settlement that was reached, I guess, with the young woman at one point, but I don't really know where all that stands. That's why we'll have that news conference next month with police, and we'll find out more about where that case is likely to go. So, all that being said, that gets us pretty close to the top of the hour now. I did send a new link to Peaceman. I was hoping that we would get him on the program tonight, and it is my mistake. I sent him the wrong link. I made an error when I was sending out emails earlier in the day, so I certainly apologize for that. That is no doubt why he is not here with us right now. So I do apologize. So I'll give it a minute. I'm going to take a quick break, and maybe he's watching. Maybe he knows that I've resent the link, and maybe he'll click on it and join us with his camera on the other side. Don't go away.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back. That gets us to the top of the hour, and what I'm going to do actually here now, folks, is I'm going to sign off. I appreciate everybody joining me here on the program tonight. We're going to just wrap it up a little bit earlier than normal, and maybe we'll get Peaceman on tomorrow night to talk about what happened with his court case. If you're inclined, you can support the show by donating at freedomreporters.com or maverickdonations.com. Any donation of $60 or more, and I will send you a Dickies shirt with the news logo embroidered. And if you send me $30 or more for the show to support our operation here, to keep us functioning, I will send you a t-shirt, a Maverick News t-shirt. Just let me know in the description when you make your donation. Just send on along the information, what size you want. You can have it in any color you want as long as it is black. And I will be back here tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Love you all. Catch you on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.